You think being mentally untouchable means feeling nothing. That's the lie. I spent decades on battlefields watching men crumble not from the enemy's sword, but from their own minds. The ones who survived, they felt everything. Pain, fear, grief. But they'd learned something the rest hadn't. Suffering is mandatory, but torture is optional. What if I told you the path to becoming unbreakable isn't about building thicker walls, but about learning to stand in the rain without needing it to stop? Stay with me, because what I'm about to share contradicts everything you've been taught about strength. I need you to understand something right from the start. When people hear the word Stoic, they imagine someone cold, unmoved, stone-faced in the midst of chaos. That's not what I'm talking about. That's not what I lived. And if that's what you think this philosophy is about, then someone has deeply misled you. And I want to correct that right now because your freedom depends on understanding this distinction. I was an emperor. I led armies. I made decisions that affected millions of lives. And I also woke up most mornings terrified, anxious, doubtful. I grieved losses, so painful I thought they'd kill me. I felt betrayal that cut so deep I wanted to rage and burn everything down. I knew loneliness even in rooms full of people. I knew what it was like to lie awake at 3 in the morning replaying conversations from 20 years ago, wishing I'd said something different, wishing I'd been kinder, wishing I could go back and unmake mistakes that felt permanently carved into my soul. Does that sound like someone who feels nothing? Does that sound untouchable? Here's what I learned, and it's the reason you're here right now, the reason this video exists. Being mentally untouchable doesn't mean you stop feeling. It means you stop being owned by what you feel. There's a massive difference. Most people spend their entire lives trying to eliminate pain, avoid discomfort, control circumstances, engineer outcomes. They think peace lives on the other side of finally getting everything right. And so they're constantly at war with their emotions, at war with reality, at war with themselves, and they're exhausted. Maybe you're exhausted too. What I'm offering you today is not a way to win that war. I'm offering you a way to stop fighting it entirely. These 10 habits I'm about to share, they're not tactics to suppress what you're feeling. They're not strategies to pretend you're fine when you're falling apart. They're something much more radical than that. They're a complete restructuring of how you relate to your own experience. And when that restructuring happens, something extraordinary occurs. You don't become invincible. You become free, free to feel everything without being destroyed by anything. Free to be fully human without apologizing for it. Free to carry pain without it carrying you. Now, let me be very direct with you about why you need to hear this and why it matters right now in your life with whatever you're dealing with. You've been lied to, not maliciously maybe, but you've been given a set of instructions for how to be strong that are actually making you weaker. You've been told to push through. Tough it out. Don't let them see you sweat. Keep your chin up. Fake it till you make it. And maybe some of that worked for a while. Maybe you built a pretty convincing exterior, but inside, you're crumbling. Inside, you're barely holding it together, and the gap between how you appear and how you actually feel is getting wider and more exhausting every single day. The core pain you're experiencing, whether you can name it or not, is this. You're performing resilience while drowning in private. You've learned to smile through anxiety, to function through depression, to achieve through burnout. And everyone around you thinks you're fine, which means you can't even ask for help because you've become so good at the mask. But the mask is suffocating you. And here's the deepest cut of all: you've started to believe that the mask is what strength looks like. That if you took it off, if you admitted how you really feel, if you stopped pretending, you'd be weak, you'd be a failure, you'd be exposed as the fraud you secretly fear you are. That belief is killing you. Slowly, quietly, but definitively. And I know this because I lived it. As emperor, I couldn't afford to be seen as weak. I couldn't afford doubt or fear or uncertainty, or so I thought. The weight of that performance nearly destroyed me, until I learned something that changed everything. Something that the Stoic philosophers before me had discovered, and that I tested in the crucible of real life, real war, real loss, real leadership, real humanity. Here it is. Real strength isn't the absence of vulnerability, it's the capacity to be vulnerable without falling apart. It's not about controlling your emotions, it's about not being controlled by them. It's not about building walls so high that nothing can hurt you. It's about opening the doors wide and learning to host whatever enters without letting it redecorate your entire house. You see the difference? One is a prison, the other is power. So here's what this video is going to give you that every other mental toughness, self-help, motivational content cannot and will not give you. I'm not going to teach you how to win. I'm going to teach you how to be free whether you win or lose. I'm not going to teach you how to eliminate fear. I'm going to teach you how to act with courage while fear is still present. I'm not going to teach you how to control outcomes. I'm going to teach you how to release your desperate need to control them. And in that release, you're going to find something you've been searching for your entire life. Peace that doesn't depend on circumstances. Worth that isn't negotiable. Steadiness that doesn't require the world to cooperate. The specific misunderstanding I'm going to dismantle today is this idea that Stoicism equals emotional suppression, that it's about not caring, about detachment, about rising above your feelings like some enlightened robot. That's not Stoicism. That's repression wearing a philosophical costume. And repression always leads to implosion. What I practiced, what the true Stoics practiced, was not emotional control, it was emotional clarity. Not numbness, but discernment. Not detachment, but appropriate attachment. And those distinctions, those are everything. By the end of our time together, you're not just going to have 10 habits to practice. You're going to have a completely new operating system for your consciousness. You're going to understand why you suffer the way you do and how to suffer less without eliminating pain. You're going to know exactly which thoughts to trust and which to question. You're going to have permission finally to be human without shame. And you're going to walk away with practical, simple, doable actions you can take tomorrow morning that will begin the transformation immediately. But here's what I need from you before we go deeper. I need you to be willing to question everything you think you know about strength. I need you to be open to the possibility that the very strategies you've been using to protect yourself are the ones keeping you trapped. And I need you to trust me for the next 40 minutes or so, even when what I'm saying sounds wrong or counterintuitive or too simple to be true, because the deepest truths are always simple. It's our resistance to them that's complicated. All right. Before we get into the 10 habits themselves, I need to tell you 2 stories. Not because they're entertaining, though I hope they are, but because they contain the essential paradoxes we're going to be unpacking throughout this entire conversation. The first story is going to confuse you a little bit. The second one is going to clarify everything. And together, they're going to show you what mental untouchability actually looks like in real human experience. The first story is about a soldier. It's a story I tell often because I witnessed versions of it hundreds of times, and every time it taught me something new. Imagine you're a young man, maybe 19 years old. You've trained for months. You've drilled. You've prepared. But nothing, and I mean nothing, prepares you for the morning of your first real battle. The sun isn't even up yet. The air is cold, sharp in your lungs. You can hear the enemy camp in the distance, stirring, preparing. Your hands won't stop shaking, not because you're cold, because you're terrified. You're putting on your armor, and it feels impossibly heavy. Not the physical weight, though that's real too, but the psychological weight, the knowledge that in a few hours you might be dead. that this might be your last morning, that everything you've ever known, everyone you've ever loved, all of your hopes and dreams and fears and regrets, all of it might end today, and your mind is racing, spinning, catastrophizing, playing out every possible nightmare scenario. You can barely breathe. You think you might vomit. You think maybe you should run. You think you're going to embarrass yourself. You think you're not built for this. And then you notice the soldier next to you. He's older, maybe in his 40s, a veteran, scars on his arms, grey in his beard. And here's what's strange. He's calm, not pretending to be calm, actually calm. There's even something like a small smile on his face. And you can't understand it. You can't reconcile it. How can he be calm right now? How is he not paralyzed by the same terror that's eating you alive? So you ask him, your voice shaking, barely able to get the words out. How are you not afraid? And what he says next, this is the part that's going to sound wrong at first. He looks at you with kind eyes and he says, I'm terrified. And you're confused because he doesn't look terrified. He looks at peace. So you ask again, but how are you so calm if you're terrified? And he says something you'll never forget. He says, I'm terrified. I'm just no longer terrified of being terrified. Let that sit for a moment. I'm terrified. I'm just no longer terrified of being terrified. What does that even mean? It sounds like a riddle, like philosophical wordplay. But it's not. It's the secret. It's the whole thing. What that veteran had learned and what took me years to fully understand is that fear itself is not the problem. Resistance to fear is the problem. Shame about fear is the problem. Fear of fear is the problem. He was scared, but he wasn't scared of being scared. He wasn't adding a second layer of suffering on top of the first. He wasn't telling himself he shouldn't feel afraid. He wasn't fighting the fear. He was allowing it, hosting it, making space for it. And in that space, that acceptance, that surrender to what is, that's where the peace lived. Most people, when they feel fear, immediately go to war with it. They think, I shouldn't feel this way. What's wrong with me? I need to get rid of this feeling. I need to push it down. I need to be stronger. And so they're not just dealing with the fear, they're dealing with the fear plus the shame about the fear, plus the anxiety about the anxiety, plus the resistance to all of it. That's what I call secondary suffering. The veteran had eliminated secondary suffering. He was carrying one weight instead of 10, and that's why he could smile. Not because he didn't feel fear, but because he'd stopped being afraid of it. This is where most people get Stoicism completely wrong. They think the goal is to not feel fear, to not feel sadness, to not feel anger or grief or anxiety, to transcend emotion, to rise above it, to become some kind of unfeeling philosopher king who floats through life unbothered by the human condition. And when they try to do that, when they try to suppress what they're feeling, it backfires catastrophically, because emotions are like water. You can't stop them. You can only dam them up for a while, and when the dam breaks, and it always breaks, the flood destroys everything. The Stoic path isn't about stopping the water. It's about learning to swim. It's about learning to let the wave pass through you without drowning you. It's about understanding that you are not your fear. You are the awareness that notices the fear. You are the space in which fear appears. And when you understand that distinction, when you really get it in your bones, fear loses its power. Not because it disappears, but because you're no longer identified with it. You're no longer defined by it. You can feel it fully without it owning you fully. So that's the first story. The soldier who felt everything but wasn't destroyed by it. Now let me tell you the second story. And this one is personal. This one is mine. And it's vulnerable for me to share, even now, even centuries later, even from beyond the grave or wherever I am in your imagination as you listen to this. But I think you need to hear it, because you need to know that I wasn't born wise. I wasn't born strong. I was made wise through failure. I was made strong through weakness. And If I can transform, so can you. The night I learned I was going to become emperor, that I'd been adopted by Antoninus Pius and would one day rule Rome, most people assume that was a moment of triumph for me. Glory, achievement, validation, the ultimate success story. And on the surface, maybe it looked that way. But let me tell you what that night actually felt like. It felt like drowning. It felt like someone had just placed the weight of the entire world on my shoulders and expected me to carry it without stumbling. It felt, more than anything, like exposure, like I was about to be revealed as a fraud. I remember lying in my bed, unable to sleep, my heart pounding so hard I thought it might crack my ribs. And the thoughts wouldn't stop. They came in waves, relentless, each one more terrifying than the last. You're not ready for this. You're going to fail. You're going to let everyone down. You're going to make mistakes that will cost lives. Who do you think you are to lead Rome? You don't have what it takes. You've been pretending to be wise, but you're just as lost as everyone else. They're going to find out. They're going to see through you. And when they do, it's going to destroy you. Imposter syndrome, we'd call it now, though we didn't have that term then. But that feeling is ancient. That feeling is universal. That feeling of not being enough, of being on the verge of being exposed, of waiting for the other shoe to drop, of succeeding externally while collapsing internally. I felt it so intensely that night that I thought I might actually lose my mind. I thought I might refuse the adoption, run away, disappear, go live as a peasant somewhere where no one would ever expect anything from me again. But then something happened, not something external. Nothing changed in the room. No one came to comfort me. No divine voice spoke from the heavens. What happened was internal, and it was small. So small it almost wasn't there. It was a thought, just one thought. It came quietly, underneath all the panic and fear and resistance. And the thought was this: no one is ready. No one is ready. Not for this. Not for anything that matters. Readiness is a myth. It's a story we tell ourselves to postpone living, to postpone risk, to postpone becoming. We wait to feel ready to start the business, to leave the relationship, to have the conversation, to make the art, to take the leap. We wait for certainty, for confidence, for the guarantee that we won't fail. But that guarantee never comes. Certainty never arrives. We're never ready. And if we wait until we're ready, we'll wait forever. So I asked myself a different question that night. Not, am I ready? But, can I take the next step? Just the next one. Not all of them. Not the next year or decade or lifetime of steps. Just tomorrow morning. Just the first thing. And the answer to that question was yes. I could take the next step. I didn't need to know how to be emperor. I just needed to know how to be a decent human tomorrow, how to show up with integrity, how to listen more than I spoke, how to ask for help when I needed it, how to admit what I didn't know, how to do the next right thing without needing to control the outcome. And that's what I did. For 40 years, that's all I did. I took the next step, and then the next one, and then the next. Sometimes I stumbled, often I failed. Regularly I doubted, but I kept taking the next step. Not because I was ready, not because I was certain, not because I felt confident, but because I'd learned that courage isn't the absence of doubt. Courage is taking the step with the doubt still present, with the fear still present, with the insecurity and inadequacy and terror still present. You take the step anyway, not in spite of the fear, but with it. You bring it along. You make it your companion rather than your enemy. Now here's why I told you both of these stories. Because they're teaching you the same fundamental truth from two different angles. The soldier's story shows you that you can feel fear without becoming fear. My story shows you that you can act despite fear without waiting for it to disappear. Together, they reveal something essential about what it means to be mentally untouchable. It doesn't mean you're invincible. It means you're willing to feel what you feel, willing to act anyway, willing to be afraid and brave at the same time, willing to be uncertain and committed at the same time, willing to be human. You're probably waiting to feel ready too, aren't you? Ready for something, ready to start that thing you keep thinking about, ready to leave that situation you know isn't right for you anymore, ready to have that conversation you've been avoiding, ready to become that version of yourself you glimpse in your best moments. And you're waiting because you think readiness is a feeling. You think one day you'll wake up and feel ready, feel certain, feel confident, and that's when you'll act. But I'm telling you from experience, from decades of leadership and philosophy and war and loss and love, readiness doesn't feel like anything. Readiness is just willingness plus action. That's it. It's that simple. It's that hard. So these two stories are going to serve as the foundation for everything else we talk about today. Because the 10 habits I'm about to share with you, they're not about making you feel less. They're about making you feel more, but without being destroyed by it. They're not about control. They're about freedom. They're not about perfection. They're about showing up. And they all rest on this one simple, revolutionary, life-changing understanding. You don't need to wait until the storm passes. You can learn to dance in the rain. Now, I could have made very different choices that night when I learned I'd become emperor. Choices that would have destroyed me. I could have pretended I wasn't afraid. I could have performed certainty I didn't feel. I could have isolated myself, refused help, tried to do it all alone to prove I was worthy. I could have become rigid, defensive, closed off. I could have let the pressure turn me cruel or paranoid or small. Many emperors did. Many leaders do. Many people do. They let the weight crush them because they think they have to carry it alone, carry it perfectly, carry it without ever showing strain. But I didn't do that. And the reason I didn't is because I had these 10 practices, these 10 daily habits that kept me sane when sanity seemed impossible, that kept me human when power was trying to make me something else, that kept me grounded when everything around me was chaos. And I'm going to teach them to you now, not as abstract philosophy, not as theoretical wisdom, but as practical, doable, livable actions you can take starting tomorrow. The first one is going to feel wrong. It might even upset you a little bit, but stay with me. Trust me, because it works. Before I give you the habits, though, I need to frame them properly so you understand what you're actually doing. These aren't 10 separate, disconnected practices. They're not a random list of things that happen to help me. They're 10 facets of the same diamond, 10 angles on the same truth. And that truth is this: the practice of distinguishing what's yours to carry and what isn't. That's it. That's the whole thing. Everything else is just application of that principle in different areas of your life. Most of human suffering comes from carrying things that aren't ours to carry. We carry other people's emotions. We carry outcomes we can't control. We carry expectations that were never ours to begin with. We carry the past like it's still happening. We carry the future like it's already here. We carry judgments, opinions, rejections, failures, regrets, resentments, fears that aren't even based in reality. And we wonder why we're exhausted. We wonder why we're anxious all the time. We wonder why peace feels impossible. It's because we're trying to carry the whole world, and we were only ever meant to carry ourselves. So each of these 10 habits is teaching you, in a different way, how to put down what's not yours. How to sort through the pile of everything you're carrying and ask, is this mine? Is this my responsibility? Is this within my power to change? Is this true? And whatever doesn't pass that test, you practice laying it down, again and again and again, until it becomes automatic. Until your default mode isn't grasping and controlling, but releasing and trusting. That's the transformation. That's what mentally untouchable actually means. It means you're no longer holding on to things that were never meant to be held. All right, let's do this. Habit number 1, the morning rehearsal. I called it premeditatio malorum in Latin, which means premeditation of evils. Sounds dark, right? Sounds pessimistic. Maybe even sounds like it contradicts everything you've been taught about positive thinking and manifestation and keeping your vibration high. But hear me out, because this practice might be the most powerful thing you ever do for your mental health. Here's what it is. Every single morning, before you do anything else, you sit quietly for just a few minutes and you mentally rehearse potential difficulties for the day ahead. You imagine what could go wrong. You visualize challenges you might face. You think through worst-case scenarios, not in a catastrophizing, spiraling, anxiety-inducing way, but in a calm, methodical, prepared way. You're essentially asking yourself, what might happen today that could throw me off center? And how will I respond when it does? Now let me tell you why this works. Because it's counterintuitive. You'd think that imagining bad things would make you anxious. You'd think it would ruin your morning, put you in a negative headspace, set you up for a bad day. But it does the opposite. And the reason is this. The mind suffers most from surprise, from the unexpected, from the shock of reality not matching expectation. When something blindsides you, when something you didn't see coming hits you, that's when you lose your balance. That's when you react instead of respond. That's when you say things you regret, do things that aren't aligned with your values, spiral into panic or rage or despair. But when you've already met something in your imagination, when you've already rehearsed it, when you've already seen it coming, reality becomes less overwhelming. You're not surprised. You're not shocked. You're prepared. Not in a fearful, defensive way, in a centered, grounded way. It's like watching a movie when you already know the plot. You still experience it. You still feel the emotions. But you're not hijacked by it. You're not at its mercy. You've removed the element of surprise. And in doing so, you've removed most of the suffering. Let me give you an example from my own life. When I was emperor, I had to deal with betrayal, constantly. People I trusted would turn on me. Allies would become enemies. Friends would choose ambition over loyalty, and each time it happened, it hurt. But you know what hurt more? When I didn't see it coming, when I was blindsided. When I'd put all my trust in someone and they shattered it without warning. Those betrayals devastated me. They made me paranoid. They made me want to close off, trust no one, become hard and cynical and cruel. But then I started practicing this morning rehearsal, and I'd sit there and I'd think, today, someone might betray me. Someone I trust might lie to me. Someone I've helped might turn against me. And I'd visualize it. I'd feel what it would feel like. I'd imagine my response. Not a reactive response, not a vengeful response, but a response rooted in my values. I'd imagine myself feeling the pain, acknowledging it, and then choosing dignity anyway, choosing forgiveness anyway, choosing to remain open-hearted anyway. And you know what happened? When betrayals did occur, and they did, often I was ready. I wasn't surprised. I wasn't shattered. I still felt the pain, yes, but I wasn't destroyed by it. I'd already met it. I'd already decided how I'd respond. And that preparation gave me something invaluable. It gave me the space between stimulus and response. That tiny gap where choice lives. Without that gap, you're just a puppet. Stimulus happens, you react. Someone betrays you, you rage. Someone criticizes you, you collapse. Someone rejects you, you spiral. But with that gap, with that preparation, you can choose. You can feel the pain and choose wisdom anyway. So here's how you practice this tomorrow morning. You wake up. Before you check your phone, before you start your day, you sit somewhere quiet. Just for 3 minutes. That's all. And you ask yourself, what could go wrong today? Maybe you have a difficult meeting. Maybe you're waiting for news about something important. Maybe you're dealing with a challenging person. Maybe you're anxious about a deadline. Whatever it is, you bring it to mind, and you imagine it going badly. You imagine the worst-case scenario, the rejection, the conflict, the failure, the disappointment. And here's the crucial part. You imagine yourself responding with character, with integrity, with your values intact. You don't imagine yourself falling apart. You imagine yourself feeling the pain and choosing your response anyway. You imagine yourself being afraid but acting with courage anyway. Being hurt but choosing kindness anyway. Being disappointed but choosing perspective anyway. You rehearse the version of yourself you want to be, so that when the moment comes, you're not improvising. You're embodying something you've already practiced, and then you let it go. You don't carry that visualization with you all day. You don't ruminate on it. You just rehearse it, and then you release it. And what you'll find is this. If the thing doesn't happen, great. You're pleasantly surprised. If the thing does happen, you're prepared. Either way, you win. Either way, you're not at the mercy of circumstances. You're grounded in your own capacity to handle what comes. The common mistake people make with this practice is they confuse it with worry. They think, isn't this just worrying? Isn't this just negative thinking? No, worry is passive. Worry is rumination without resolution. Worry is imagining the worst and then feeling helpless about it. This practice is active. It's rehearsal with intention. It's imagining the worst and then deciding who you'll be in response to it. Worry disempowers you. This practice empowers you. That's the difference. I practiced this every single morning for decades, before battles, before difficult political meetings, before personal challenges, and it never failed me, not because it prevented bad things from happening, but because it prevented bad things from destroying me. And that's the promise of this first habit. Not that you'll avoid difficulty, but that you'll meet it with steadiness, with presence, with a version of yourself you can be proud of. All right, habit number 2. This one is the foundation of everything else. If you learn nothing else from this entire video, learn this. It's called the dichotomy of control, and it's the single most powerful psychological tool I've ever encountered. It's simple to understand, difficult to practice, and completely life-changing when you do. Here it is. There are things within your control, and there are things outside your control. That's it. That's the dichotomy. And your job, your only job, is to correctly identify which is which, and then act accordingly. Pour all your energy, all your attention, all your effort into what you can control, and release, completely and totally, what you cannot control. No negotiating, no bargaining. No, but what if I try harder? If it's outside your control, it's outside your control. Let it go. Now here's what's actually within your control. Your intentions, your efforts, your responses, your choices, your character, your integrity, how you treat people, what you say and do, how you interpret events, what meaning you assign to things, your attention, your focus, your attitude. That's it. That's the list. Everything else, and I mean everything else, is outside your control. Outcomes, results, other people's opinions, other people's behavior, the weather, the economy, your health, to a large extent, the past, the future, success, failure, recognition, rejection, all of it, outside your control. And here's the radical truth that most people never accept. 90% of your suffering comes from trying to control the uncontrollable. Read that again. 90%. You're suffering not because of what's happening, but because you're trying to control what's happening. You're suffering because reality isn't matching your expectations and you're at war with that gap. You're suffering because you think if you just worry enough, plan enough, manipulate enough, you can force outcomes to go your way. And when they don't, and they often don't, You feel like a failure. You feel helpless. You feel like the universe is against you. But the problem isn't the universe. The problem is your relationship with control. You're trying to control things that were never yours to control. And the exhaustion you feel, the anxiety, the frustration, the resentment, it's all coming from that impossible task you've assigned yourself. You're trying to hold water in your bare hands and wondering why you're always thirsty. So here's the liberation. Here's the freedom. You're only responsible for your intentions, your efforts, and your responses. That's it. Never outcomes. Never results. Never other people's reactions. You do your absolute best. You show up with integrity. You act from your values. You give everything you've got. And then you release the outcome. You surrender it. You stop measuring yourself by results and start measuring yourself by whether you maintained your character in the process. Let me give you an example. Let's say you're applying for a job you really want, a job that would change your life. You prepare for the interview. You research the company. You practice your answers. You show up on time, dressed well, giving it everything you've got. You're nervous, yes, but you push through anyway. You answer questions honestly and thoughtfully. You represent yourself well, and then you leave. And now you wait. And this is where most people torture themselves. They obsess over the outcome. Did I get it? Did I say the right things? What are they thinking? When will they call? What if they don't choose me? What does that mean about me? And all of that obsession, all of that anxiety, it's suffering that comes from trying to control the uncontrollable. You cannot control whether they hire you. You can't. No amount of worrying will change their decision. No amount of ruminating will make them call faster. No amount of mental gymnastics will guarantee the outcome you want. That's outside your control. What was inside your control? Your preparation, your effort, your integrity during the interview. And if you did those things well, then you succeeded. Period. Whether they hire you or not doesn't change that success. It doesn't define you. It doesn't determine your worth. This is such a hard concept for people to accept because we've been conditioned to measure ourselves by outcomes. We think we're only successful if we get the result we wanted. We think we're only worthy if other people validate us. We think we're only good enough if circumstances confirm it. But that's giving your power away. That's making your peace conditional on things you can't control, and that's a recipe for lifelong suffering. The Stoic approach is different. It says, I'll control what I can control: my character, my effort, my integrity, and I'll accept what I can't control: outcomes, other people's choices, circumstances. And in that acceptance, in that surrender, I find peace. Not because everything goes my way, but because my worth isn't dependent on everything going my way. I made decisions as emperor that affected millions of lives. Decisions about war, about policy, about resources, about justice. And I learned very quickly that I could make the wisest decision possible, with the best information available, with pure intentions, and still have it not work out the way I hoped. People would still die. Things would still go wrong. Outcomes would still surprise me. And if I measured my success by outcomes, I'd have been miserable. I'd have been crushed under the weight of variables I couldn't control. But I didn't measure myself that way. I asked a different question. Did I make the decision with wisdom? Did I consider all perspectives? Did I act from my values? Did I give it my honest, best effort? If yes, then I succeeded. Even if the outcome was painful, even if things didn't work out, I controlled what was mine to control and I released what wasn't, and that's how I stayed sane. That's how I maintained integrity in impossible circumstances. So here's how you practice this immediately. Right now, today, take a piece of paper and draw a line down the middle. On the left side, write, within my control. On the right side, write, outside my control. And then think about something that's bothering you, something you're anxious about, something you're frustrated by, and list every single aspect of that situation, putting each item in the appropriate column. What you'll find, if you're honest, is that almost everything will land in the outside my control column. Maybe you're stressed about your health. You can control your diet, your exercise, your sleep, your habits. You cannot control your genetics, aging, accidents, or many diseases. Maybe you're anxious about a relationship. You can control how you show up, how you communicate, how you treat the other person. You cannot control their feelings, their choices, whether they stay or leave. Maybe you're worried about money. You can control your spending, your effort at work, your financial decisions. You cannot control the economy, your employer's decisions, unexpected expenses, or market fluctuations. And here's what you do with that right column, the outside my control list. You practice letting it go, literally. You take a breath in, and as you breathe out, you release it. You say, out loud if you need to, this is not mine to carry. This is outside my control. I release it. And you do this again and again, every time you catch yourself trying to grip something that was never yours to hold. It won't be easy at first. Your mind will fight it. Your mind is addicted to the illusion of control. It thinks if it just worries enough, it can prevent bad things from happening. But that's not how reality works. Worrying doesn't protect you. It just exhausts you. Releasing control doesn't make you passive. It makes you powerful. Because now you're pouring all your energy into what actually matters, your character, your choices, your responses. And that's where your true power lives. This practice, more than anything else, will give you peace. Not because your life becomes easier, but because you stop fighting battles you were never meant to win. You stop trying to control the uncontrollable. And in that surrender, you find something beautiful. You find that you're actually okay, that you can handle what comes, that your worth isn't dependent on outcomes, that you're free. I'm going to be honest with you. This one habit alone could change your entire life. If you never learn anything else from Stoicism, learn this. Master this. Make this your default way of thinking. Ask yourself constantly, throughout the day, every time you feel tension or anxiety or frustration, is this within my control or outside it? And then act accordingly. Control what you can. Release what you can't. And watch your life transform. All right. Habit number 3. And this one is going to sound strange, maybe even counterproductive. It's called voluntary discomfort. And it's the practice of regularly choosing small discomforts to build immunity to larger ones. Now, before you think I'm asking you to become some kind of masochist or ascetic who punishes himself, let me explain what this actually is and why it's so powerful. We live in a world that's more comfortable than any generation has ever experienced. Climate-controlled homes, abundant food, entertainment on demand, everything designed for ease and convenience. And in many ways, that's wonderful. I'm not against comfort, but here's the problem. When you're comfortable all the time, you become dependent on comfort. You need it. And when you need comfort, you're a slave to it. You can't handle even minor discomfort without falling apart. You can't handle being cold, being hungry, being bored, being inconvenienced. And life, as you've probably noticed, is full of discomfort. Things go wrong, plans change, pain happens. And if you've trained yourself to need constant comfort, you're going to suffer enormously. Voluntary discomfort is the antidote. It's training. It's practice. It's you deliberately choosing small, manageable discomforts so that when larger, unavoidable discomforts come, you're not shocked by them. You're not undone by them. You've built the capacity to handle them. It's like exercise for your resilience. You're inoculating yourself against suffering by administering small doses of it voluntarily. Here's what this looked like in my life. As emperor, I could have had every luxury imaginable, the finest foods, the softest beds, every comfort. And sometimes I enjoyed those things, yes. But regularly, deliberately, I would choose discomfort. I'd sleep on the floor sometimes. I'd fast for a day. I'd take cold baths. I'd walk long distances when I could have ridden. I'd sit in silence when I could have been entertained. Not because I enjoyed it, not because I thought comfort was evil, but because I was training myself. I was teaching my body and mind that I don't need comfort to be okay, that I can handle discomfort without falling apart, that I'm stronger than I think. And here's what happened. When real hardship came, and it came often, I wasn't destroyed by it. When I had to sleep on the ground during military campaigns, it wasn't foreign to me. When food was scarce, I'd experienced hunger before. When things were painful or difficult or uncomfortable, I had reference experiences that proved to me I could handle it. I wasn't fragile. I was resilient. Not because I was naturally tough, but because I'd trained toughness through voluntary practice. Now let me be very clear about something. This is not about punishing yourself. This is not about self-harm or proving how tough you are or competing with others about who can suffer more. This is about building trust with yourself. It's about proving to yourself that you're capable, that you can handle hard things, that discomfort won't kill you. And that proof, that self-trust, is one of the most valuable things you can develop. Think about what most people are afraid of. They're afraid of being uncomfortable, afraid of being cold, hot, hungry, bored, embarrassed, rejected, disappointed. And because they're afraid of discomfort, they avoid it at all costs. They make their entire life about maintaining comfort and avoiding pain. And in doing so, they make themselves incredibly fragile. They can't handle even the smallest setback without spiraling. They can't handle even minor inconvenience without feeling victimized. Their entire emotional state depends on circumstances cooperating, and circumstances rarely cooperate. But when you practice voluntary discomfort, you're systematically removing that fear. You're proving to yourself that discomfort is not dangerous, that you can be cold and be okay, that you can be hungry and be okay, that you can be bored, uncomfortable, inconvenienced, and still maintain your center. And that's freedom. That's power. When you're not afraid of discomfort, you're not controlled by it. You can make hard choices. You can have difficult conversations. You can take necessary risks. You can do what's right, even when it's uncomfortable. Because discomfort isn't something you need to avoid anymore. It's just something you can handle. So, here's what this looks like practically. You start small, very small. Because the goal isn't to torture yourself. The goal is to gradually expand your capacity. Maybe you start with cold showers. Just the last 30 seconds of your shower, turn the water cold. It's uncomfortable, yes, but it's not dangerous. And you do it, and you survive. And you prove to yourself that you can handle discomfort. Or maybe you skip one meal a week. Just one. You feel hunger. You sit with it. You don't die. You prove you can handle it. Maybe you take the stairs instead of the elevator, even though it's harder. Maybe you sit in silence for 10 minutes instead of immediately reaching for your phone. Maybe you have that uncomfortable conversation you've been avoiding. Maybe you say no to something you want but don't need. Maybe you wake up early even though your bed is comfortable. Maybe you work out even though you're tired. Small, manageable discomforts that you choose deliberately. And here's what you'll notice. 2 things. First, the discomfort is never as bad as you thought it would be. Your mind catastrophizes it beforehand. But when you're actually in it, it's just discomfort. It's not the end of the world. It's not unbearable. It's just mildly unpleasant. And you can handle mildly unpleasant. Second, You'll notice your confidence growing. You'll start to see yourself differently, not as someone who needs everything to be perfect to be okay, but as someone who's capable, someone who's resilient, someone who can handle what comes. And that shift in identity is everything. Because when you believe you're fragile, you live defensively. You avoid anything that might be hard. You play it safe. You stay small. But when you believe you're capable, you live boldly. You take risks. You embrace challenge. You grow. And that's the difference between a life lived in fear and a life lived in courage. I'm not asking you to become some kind of Spartan warrior who sleeps on nails and bathes in ice. I'm asking you to gently, gradually expand your capacity for discomfort, to prove to yourself that you're stronger than you think, that you can handle more than you believe. That comfort is a beautiful gift, but a terrible master. And when you free yourself from the need for constant comfort, you free yourself from so much suffering. Because here's the thing. Life will make you uncomfortable whether you practice or not. Discomfort is coming, pain is inevitable, but suffering is optional. And the difference between pain and suffering is your relationship with discomfort. If discomfort terrifies you, if you have no capacity for it, then even minor pain will feel like suffering. But if you've trained your capacity, if you've practiced meeting discomfort with equanimity, then even major pain doesn't have to become suffering. You can experience it, acknowledge it, and continue anyway. So that's the third habit, voluntary discomfort. Choose small discomforts regularly to build resilience for the inevitable larger ones. Prove to yourself that you're capable. Free yourself from the tyranny of needing everything to be comfortable. And watch how it transforms not just how you handle hardship, but how you approach your entire life. Now let's talk about habit number 4. And this one is deeply personal to me because I practiced it every single night without fail. It's called evening reflection, and it's the practice of reviewing your day with honest, gentle clarity. Not to shame yourself, not to spiral into regret, but to learn, to see patterns, to course correct, to become more conscious of who you're being and whether that aligns with who you want to be. Here's how it works. At the end of each day, before you sleep, you take just 5 or 10 minutes to review everything that happened. You run through the day like you're watching a film of yourself, and you ask yourself a series of questions. Where was I excellent today? Where did I fall short? Where was I kind? Where was I cruel or indifferent? Where did I act from my values? Where did I betray them? Where was I present? Where was I distracted or numb? Where did I waste time? Where did I invest it wisely? The key to this practice is the tone. You're not judging yourself. You're not prosecuting yourself. You're observing yourself. There's a huge difference. If you approach this with harshness, with criticism, with shame, you'll just reinforce the patterns you're trying to change. You'll make yourself feel so bad that you'll avoid the practice entirely. But if you approach it with curiosity, with compassion, with the energy of a scientist studying data, then it becomes incredibly powerful. I learned this from my teacher Epictetus, and I modified it for myself over the years. Every night, I would lie down and I would review my day. I'd remember conversations I had, decisions I made, moments where I was patient or impatient, times I was generous or selfish, times I listened or interrupted, times I was brave or afraid, and I'd notice it all without judgment. I'd just see it clearly. And then I'd ask myself, if I could live today again, what would I do differently? And I'd imagine it. I'd visualize a better version of the interaction. I'd imagine responding with more wisdom, more kindness, more patience, not to torture myself with regret, but to rehearse a better way for next time, because we're always going to have a next time. Similar situations arise again and again, and if we never study our patterns, we just keep repeating them. We keep making the same mistakes, having the same arguments, falling into the same traps. But when you review your day, when you study yourself honestly, you start to see the patterns. You start to notice, oh, I always get defensive when someone questions my competence. I always shut down when someone raises their voice. I always avoid conflict, even when it's necessary. I always seek validation, even when I don't need it. I always compare myself to others and feel inferior. I always scroll on my phone when I'm anxious. Whatever your patterns are, they become visible. And once they're visible, you can work with them. Let me give you an example from my own life. I noticed, through this evening practice, that I had a pattern of interrupting people. I'd be in a meeting or a conversation, and before the other person finished speaking, I'd jump in with my own thoughts. I'd tell myself I was just enthusiastic, just engaged. But the truth was, I wasn't fully listening. I was waiting for my turn to talk. I was more concerned with being heard than with hearing. And that pattern was hurting my relationships. People felt unheard. They felt like I didn't value their input. And they were right. I only saw this pattern because I reviewed my days. I'd lie down at night and remember conversations, and I'd notice I interrupted again, and again, and again. And once I saw it clearly, once I admitted it without shame, I could change it. I could practice better. I could set an intention before meetings. I will listen completely before I speak. I will count to 3 after someone finishes before I respond. And gradually, over time, the pattern shifted. I became a better listener. Not perfect, but better. And that only happened because I was willing to look at myself honestly. This practice does something else too. It helps you appreciate the good, because you're not just looking for mistakes. You're also looking for moments where you were excellent. Moments where you showed up as your best self. Moments where you were kind or brave or wise or generous. And when you acknowledge those moments, when you really see them and appreciate them, you reinforce them. You make them more likely to happen again. Most people only notice when things go wrong. They replay their failures endlessly. They beat themselves up for every mistake, but they barely register their successes. They dismiss their growth. They take their good moments for granted. And so they train their brain to focus on what's wrong, which creates a negativity bias that makes life feel harder than it is. But when you balance it, when you see both the growth and the gap, both the excellence and the mistakes, you get a realistic, compassionate picture of who you are. And from that place, real change becomes possible. So here's how you start this practice tonight. Literally tonight. Before you go to sleep, don't just pass out scrolling on your phone or watching TV. Take 5 minutes, turn off the distractions, lie down or sit quietly, and ask yourself, what happened today? Where was I at my best? Where did I fall short? If I could do any part of today differently, what would I change? And what do I carry forward into tomorrow? And then, and this is important, write it down. Get a journal, nothing fancy, just a notebook, and write a few sentences, because when you write it, you clarify it. Thoughts swirl, they're vague and slippery, but when you put them on paper, they become concrete. You can see them, and that makes all the difference. Some days you won't have much to write. Some days were simple, uneventful. That's fine. Just note that. Other days you'll have a lot. Days where you failed in ways that matter. Days where you succeeded in ways you're proud of. Days where you learned something crucial about yourself. Write it all down. No one else will read it. This is just for you. This is you studying you, so you can become who you want to be. I kept journals my entire adult life. Not for posterity, though that's how history remembers them. I kept them for me, to process, to reflect, to learn, to stay conscious of who I was being. And those journals, that practice of evening reflection, they kept me sane, they kept me growing, they kept me humble. Because when you review your day honestly, you can't lie to yourself. You can't pretend you're perfect. You see your humanity clearly. And that seeing, that honesty, that's where wisdom begins. So that's habit 4. Evening reflection. The honest accounting. The gentle self-observation. The practice of learning from yourself so you don't keep repeating the same patterns. It's not about shame. It's about growth. It's not about perfection. It's about awareness. And it's one of the most transformative practices you'll ever develop. Let's move to habit 5. And this one might sound morbid at first, but stay with me because it's actually one of the most beautiful practices you'll ever engage in. It's called negative visualization, and it's the practice of imagining loss to cultivate gratitude. Specifically, you regularly imagine losing the things and people you love, not to torture yourself, but to truly see their presence while you still have them. Here's the problem we all face. We take things for granted. It's human nature. When something is always there, when someone is always available, we stop seeing them. We stop appreciating them. We assume they'll always be there, and then one day they're not. They're gone, and we're devastated. And we say things like, "I wish I'd told them I loved them more. I wish I'd appreciated them while I had them. I wish I hadn't taken them for granted." But it's too late, and the regret is crushing. Negative visualization prevents that regret. It's a practice of waking up to what you have before it's gone. It's choosing to feel the grief of loss imaginatively so that you can feel the joy of presence actually. It's a way of tricking your mind out of taking for granted and into wonder. Here's how I practiced it. I'd close my eyes and I'd imagine Faustina, my wife, gone, dead, not there anymore. And I'd feel the grief. I'd let it wash over me. The emptiness, the loneliness, the regret for every time I was impatient with her, every time I didn't really listen, every time I took her for granted. And I'd sit with that feeling, not to wallow in it, but to really face what her absence would feel like. And then I'd open my eyes, and she'd be there, alive, present, and suddenly I'd see her differently, not as the person who's always there, but as the person who won't always be there, as the precious, temporary, miraculous gift that she is. And I'd feel overwhelming gratitude. I'd feel love surge through me. And I'd go to her, and I'd tell her I loved her, not out of obligation, but because I genuinely felt it, because I just remembered that she's not permanent, that this, us, is temporary, and that makes it infinitely precious. I did this with my children too. I'd imagine them gone, and it would break my heart every time. But then I'd see them playing, laughing, living, and I'd be overcome with gratitude for their presence. I'd stop being annoyed by their noise or their mess. I'd stop being impatient with their questions. I'd just be grateful they were there, that I got to be their father, that I got to witness their lives. This practice, more than anything, kept me present with the people I loved. Because the truth is, we're all going to lose everyone we love. Either they'll die, or we will. That's not pessimism, that's reality. And if we wait until after they're gone to appreciate them, we've wasted the time we had. We've squandered the gift. But here's the paradox. When you imagine loss, when you really sit with it, you don't become sad, you become grateful. You don't become depressed, you become present. Because you remember, viscerally, that everything is temporary, that nothing lasts, that this moment, right now, is all you have. And that realization doesn't make you miserable. It makes you alive. The same thing applies to things, not just people. Imagine losing your home, your health, your job, your abilities. Not to catastrophize, not to spiral into anxiety, but to recognize that all of it is borrowed, all of it is temporary, all of it could be gone tomorrow. And when you really feel that, when you really face the impermanence of everything, you stop taking anything for granted. You stop complaining that your house isn't big enough or nice enough. You're just grateful you have a house. You stop wishing for a different job. You're grateful you have work. You stop taking your health for granted. You're grateful for every day your body functions. This practice transforms ingratitude into gratitude. It transforms complaint into appreciation. It transforms taking for granted into wonder. And it does it not through positive thinking or forced affirmations, but through honest acknowledgement of reality. Everything ends. Everyone leaves. Nothing lasts. And that's not a depressing truth. It's a liberating one, because when you accept impermanence, you stop wasting time. You stop postponing love. You stop saving your best self for some future moment. You give it now, because now is all there is. So here's how you practice this. Pick one thing you love, one person, one thing, one aspect of your life. And before you go to sleep tonight, close your eyes and imagine it gone. Really gone. Permanently. Imagine your world without it. Feel the grief. Let yourself feel it fully. Don't push it away. Don't tell yourself it's morbid. Just feel the loss as if it were real. And then open your eyes. And it's still there. Still present. Still yours. At least for now. And feel the gratitude. Feel the relief. Feel the joy of its presence. And let that feeling inform how you engage with it tomorrow. Let it change how you show up. Let it make you more present, more loving, more appreciative. You don't have to do this every day, though you can. Even once a week is powerful. The point is to regularly wake yourself up to impermanence so that you don't sleepwalk through the precious, temporary, miraculous life you have. Because here's what I learned. Life is brutally short. Even when it's long, it's short. And most people don't realize that until it's too late. Until they're old and looking back with regret. Until someone they love is gone. Until their time is running out. But you don't have to wait. You can wake up now. You can see clearly now. You can love fully now. And negative visualization is the tool that makes that possible. It's not pessimism. It's realism. It's not morbidity. It's wisdom. It's the practice of remembering that everything you have is a gift, including the people you love, including your own life. And when you remember that, everything changes. Now let's move to habit 6, and this one is about perspective. It's called the view from above, and it's the practice of zooming out to see yourself, your problems, your life from a cosmic perspective. It's about right-sizing everything so that you're not crushed by the weight of things that, in the grand scheme, are incredibly small. Here's what happens to most people. They get so zoomed in on their problems that those problems become their entire reality. Someone said something rude to them, and it ruins their week. They made a mistake at work, and they can't stop thinking about it. They got rejected, and they feel like a failure. Their life isn't going the way they planned, and they feel like it's all falling apart. And from inside that zoomed-in perspective, it feels enormous. It feels like everything. It feels unbearable, but it's not. It's just a moment. It's just one tiny experience in one tiny life on one tiny planet in one tiny solar system in one galaxy among billions of galaxies in an infinite universe. And I know that sounds like I'm trying to make you feel insignificant, but that's not it at all. What I'm trying to do is help you right-size your problems, help you see them in proportion, help you remember that you're not insignificant, but you're also not the center of the universe. Your problems are real, but they're not ultimate. Your pain matters, but it's not eternal. I practiced this all the time. When I felt overwhelmed, when the weight of empire felt crushing, when decisions felt impossible, I would close my eyes and imagine myself from above. I'd see myself in my room. Then I'd zoom out and see the palace. Then the city of Rome. Then all of Italy. Then all of Europe. Then the whole Earth. A tiny blue dot. And then the solar system, the galaxy, the universe. And I'd sit with that perspective for a moment. And you know what happened? My problems didn't disappear, but they right-sized. They stopped being everything. They became something real, something that mattered, but not everything, not the only thing, not the ultimate thing. And in that spaciousness, in that vastness, I could breathe again. I could think clearly again. I could see options I couldn't see before. I could feel the weight lift just enough to move forward. This practice is especially powerful when your ego is inflated or when you're ruminating, when you're obsessing over what someone thinks of you, when you're convinced everyone is judging you, when you're sure your mistake is unforgivable, when you're certain your problem is unique and insurmountable. Because when you zoom out, you realize no one is thinking about you nearly as much as you think they are. Everyone is dealing with their own stuff. Your mistake is forgotten by everyone but you. Your problem has been faced by millions of people before you and millions after you. And that's not depressing. That's liberating, because it takes the pressure off. You're not alone. You're not special in your suffering. You're human. And humans make mistakes. Humans struggle. Humans fail and feel rejected and experience loss. It's part of the deal. It's part of being alive. And when you zoom out and see that, when you remember that your experience is both deeply personal and completely universal, you stop feeling so isolated. You stop feeling so dramatic about it. Here's a practical way to use this. Next time you're spiraling about something, next time you're ruminating or catastrophizing, try this. Imagine you're looking at yourself from above. See yourself in whatever room you're in. Really visualize it. Now zoom out. See your building, your neighborhood, your city. Keep zooming. See your country, the continent, the whole planet. See it as just a tiny sphere in vast space, and realize, from this perspective, your problem is invisible. It doesn't even register. It's smaller than a speck of dust in an ocean. Does that mean your problem doesn't matter? No. It matters to you. It matters in your life. But it's not the end of the world. It's not ultimate. It's not permanent. It's just a moment in a vast, ongoing process. And you can handle it. Not because it's easy, but because you're part of something much bigger than yourself. You're part of this incredible, mysterious, beautiful, terrible, brief phenomenon called life. And from that perspective, you can meet your problem with more grace, more humor, more perspective. I used to think about this in terms of time too, not just space. I'd think, 200 years from now, no one will remember this moment. No one will care about this decision. No one will know my name or yours. We'll all be dust. Our problems will be forgotten. Our triumphs too. None of it will matter to anyone but us, and only for this brief flash of time we have. And again, that's not nihilism. That's perspective. It's remembering that we're not permanent, that nothing we do is permanent, and that means we're free. Free to make mistakes. Free to fail. Free to try things. Free to be imperfect. Free to be human. Because none of it is being recorded for eternity. None of it matters as much as we think it does. So that's habit 6. The view from above. The cosmic perspective. The practice of zooming out so you can zoom back in with clearer eyes. It doesn't solve your problems, but it changes your relationship with them. It makes them manageable. It makes you realize you're bigger than any single problem. You're part of something vast, and from that place, you can handle whatever comes. Habit 7 is one of the most misunderstood concepts in Stoicism, and it's probably the hardest to practice. But it's also the most transformative when you get it. It's called amor fati, which is Latin for love of fate. And it means exactly what it sounds like. Learning to love what happens. Not just accept it, not just tolerate it, but actually love it. Love everything that happens, even the painful stuff, even the stuff you'd never choose, because it's the raw material of your growth and your becoming. Now, Let me be very clear before you think this is toxic positivity or spiritual bypassing or some kind of denial of reality. This is not about pretending bad things are good. It's not about saying everything happens for a reason when something terrible occurs. It's not about denying your pain or forcing yourself to be grateful for trauma. That's not amor fati. That's bullshit. Amor fati is something much more nuanced. It's the recognition that everything that happens to you, everything you experience, everything you go through, it's all shaping you, it's all teaching you, it's all contributing to who you're becoming. And you can either resist that process, fight it, wish things were different, spend your life bitter about what happened or what didn't happen, or you can embrace it. You can say, this is my life, this is what happened, I didn't choose it, but it's mine. And I'm going to use it. I'm going to learn from it. I'm going to let it make me better instead of bitter. When I look back at my life, at everything I went through, I can honestly say I wouldn't change any of it. Not because it was all pleasant. It wasn't. I experienced profound loss, deep betrayal, painful failure, devastating grief, things I wouldn't wish on anyone. But all of that, every single painful experience, taught me something crucial. Every betrayal taught me discernment. Every loss taught me presence. Every failure taught me humility. Every moment of suffering cracked me open in ways that joy never could. And if you took any of that away, if you erased any of those experiences, I wouldn't be who I became. I wouldn't have the wisdom I gained. I wouldn't have the depth. I wouldn't have the compassion. Because easy lives don't create deep people. Comfort doesn't build character. Pain does. Struggle does. Adversity does. And I'm not grateful that I suffered. I'm grateful for what I became through the suffering. That's the difference. So, amor fati isn't about being grateful for pain. It's about being grateful for what pain makes possible. For the growth, for the strength, for the wisdom, for the person you become on the other side of it. It's about saying, this thing happened. I didn't want it. I didn't choose it. I wish it hadn't happened, but it did. And now, instead of spending the rest of my life resenting it, I'm going to use it. I'm going to let it teach me. I'm going to let it transform me. This is such a radical shift in how most people relate to their past. Most people are at war with their past. They wish they'd made different choices. They regret things they did or didn't do. They're angry at people who hurt them. They're bitter about opportunities they missed. They're stuck in if only. If only I'd chosen differently. If only they'd treated me better. If only circumstances had been different. And all of that resistance to the past creates suffering in the present. Because you can't change the past. It's done. It's fixed. And fighting with something you can't change is the definition of suffering. But when you practice amor fati, you release that fight. You stop wishing things were different. You accept that everything unfolded exactly as it did. And more than accept, you embrace it. You say, this was exactly what I needed to become who I am. This was exactly the curriculum I required. This was my path, and I love it. Not because it was easy, but because it was mine. Let me give you a concrete example. Maybe you went through a terrible breakup. Someone you loved deeply left you, and it destroyed you. And for months or years, you were bitter. You were angry. You wished it hadn't happened. You wished they'd made different choices. You replayed it endlessly, torturing yourself with what you should have done differently. And all of that kept you stuck, kept you suffering, kept you unable to move forward. Amor fati says, that relationship ended exactly as it needed to. It was painful, yes. I didn't want it, yes. But it taught me what I needed to learn. It showed me patterns I needed to see. It forced me to grow in ways I wouldn't have grown otherwise. And because of that pain, I'm wiser now. I'm stronger now. I know myself better now. I know what I will and won't accept in relationships now. And I wouldn't be who I am today without that experience. So I love it. I love that it happened because of who it made me. Can you feel the difference? It's not denial. It's not pretending it didn't hurt. It's transformation. It's alchemy. It's turning lead into gold. It's taking the worst thing that ever happened to you and using it as fertilizer for your growth. And that's power. That's freedom. That's refusing to be a victim of your own life. So here's how you practice this. Think about something painful from your past, something you still carry resentment about, something you still wish had been different. And ask yourself, what did this teach me? How did this make me grow? Who did I become because of this? What would I not know now if this hadn't happened? And then, once you've seen the growth, once you've acknowledged what you gained, say it out loud. I love that this happened, not because it was easy, but because it made me who I am. This was exactly what I needed. It'll feel weird at first, maybe even dishonest, because you're so used to resenting it. But say it anyway, practice it, because here's the truth. You can't change the past, but you can change your relationship with it. And when you do, when you stop fighting what happened and start using what happened, you become unstoppable, because now nothing can victimize you. Everything, even the painful stuff, is just fuel, just curriculum, just your path. Amor fati, love of fate. It's not about being grateful for suffering, it's about being grateful for becoming. And once you master this, once you really embody it, you're mentally untouchable, because nothing can happen to you that you can't transform into growth. Habit 8 builds on that foundation, and it's one of the most practical applications of Stoic philosophy. It's called "The obstacle is the way." And the core insight is this: whatever blocks you is your path. Whatever resists you is revealing exactly where you need to grow. Every obstacle, every challenge, every difficulty is not in your way, it is the way. Most people see obstacles as problems to be avoided, as signs they're on the wrong path, as reasons to give up or go around or wait for things to get easier. And sometimes, yes, changing course is wise. But often, the obstacle itself is the teacher, the difficulty itself is the curriculum. And if you avoid it, you miss the lesson, you stay stuck in the same patterns, you remain the same person. I learned this principle deeply during my time as emperor. There were constant obstacles: political opposition, military threats, economic crises, personal losses. And every single time I had two choices. I could see the obstacle as a curse, as bad luck, as something that shouldn't be happening, or I could see it as my curriculum, as exactly what I needed to face in order to grow. And when I chose the latter, when I stopped resisting and started learning, everything changed. Here's an example. I struggled with anger for years. When people disappointed me, when things didn't go according to plan, I'd get angry. And I hated that about myself. I saw my anger as a flaw, as something wrong with me, as an obstacle to being the person I wanted to be. And I'd try to suppress it, try to control it, try to not be angry. And that never worked. It just made the anger worse. It made me feel like a failure every time it surfaced. But then I shifted my perspective. I started seeing my anger not as an obstacle to my growth, but as the path itself. My anger was showing me exactly where I needed to work. It was revealing my attachment to control, my expectation that people should behave a certain way, my resistance to reality, my ego. And once I saw it that way, once I stopped fighting my anger and started learning from it, I began to change. Not by suppressing the anger, but by understanding what was underneath it. What was I really afraid of? What need wasn't being met? What expectation was being violated? And when I answered those questions, when I did that deeper work, the anger gradually lost its grip. The obstacle was the way. My anger wasn't preventing my growth, it was pointing me toward it. And the same is true for whatever you're facing right now. Whatever is hard for you, whatever keeps tripping you up, whatever pattern you keep repeating, that's not random. That's not bad luck. That's your curriculum. That's exactly what you need to face in order to become who you're meant to become. Are you afraid of rejection? Then your path probably involves putting yourself out there, risking rejection, learning that it won't destroy you. Are you impatient? Then your path probably involves situations that require patience, that slow you down, that teach you to surrender your need for everything to happen on your timeline. Are you afraid of being alone? Then your path probably involves solitude, learning to be with yourself, discovering that you're enough. The universe isn't randomly throwing obstacles at you. Life is showing you exactly where you need to grow. And the things you avoid, the things you resist, the things you wish weren't happening, those are your greatest teachers. Not because they're fun, not because they're pleasant, but because they're revealing the edges of your capacity, the limits of your current self, the places where transformation is waiting. So here's how you practice this. When something difficult happens, when you encounter an obstacle, instead of immediately asking, "Why is this happening to me?" or "How do I get around this?" ask a different question. Ask, "What is this teaching me? What quality is this asking me to develop? Where is this pointing me toward growth?" Maybe you lost your job. The obstacle is the way. What is this teaching? Maybe it's teaching you that your identity isn't your job. Maybe it's teaching you resilience. Maybe it's teaching you to trust yourself in uncertainty. Maybe it's forcing you to pursue something you were too afraid to pursue before. The obstacle is revealing your path. Maybe someone betrayed you. The obstacle is the way. What is this teaching? Maybe it's teaching you discernment. Maybe it's teaching you that not everyone deserves your trust. Maybe it's teaching you to pay attention to red flags you've been ignoring. Maybe it's teaching you that you're stronger than you thought, that you can survive betrayal and still remain open-hearted. Maybe you're struggling with anxiety. The obstacle is the way. What is this teaching? Maybe it's teaching you to be present. Maybe it's teaching you to stop living in the future. Maybe it's teaching you to distinguish between real danger and imagined danger. Maybe it's teaching you self-compassion. Maybe it's teaching you to slow down, to listen to your body, to honor your limits. Every obstacle has a lesson. Every difficulty has a gift hidden inside it. Your job isn't to avoid obstacles. It's to extract the lesson, to find the gift, to use the difficulty as raw material for your transformation. And when you do that, when you start moving toward what you're avoiding, when you start seeing obstacles as opportunities, everything changes. You stop being a victim, you become a student, and life stops being something that happens to you and becomes something you're actively engaged in learning from. I'm going to tell you something that might sound harsh, but it's true. If you're constantly encountering the same problem, the same pattern, the same type of person, the same difficulty, you haven't learned the lesson yet. Life is going to keep giving you the same curriculum until you pass the test. That's not punishment. That's grace. That's life saying, "I'm not giving up on you. I'm going to keep showing you this until you get it." And the fastest way to move past an obstacle isn't to avoid it. It's to move straight through it, to face it, to learn from it, to let it change you. So that's habit 8. The obstacle is the way. Stop saying, "Why is this happening?" Start saying, "What is this teaching?" Stop avoiding what's hard. Start moving toward it with curiosity. Because on the other side of every obstacle you're avoiding is the next version of you, waiting to emerge. Now let's talk about habit 9, and this one requires constant moment-to-moment practice. It's called prosouche in Greek, which means vigilant attention or mindfulness. It's the practice of watching your own mind like you'd watch weather, observing your thoughts without identifying with them, noticing when you're spinning into story versus staying with sensation, creating the gap between stimulus and response, where your freedom lives. This practice is the foundation of everything else. because you can't change what you're not aware of. You can't choose differently if you don't notice when you're on autopilot. Most people are completely unconscious most of the time. They're not present. They're not aware. They're lost in thought, lost in story, lost in automatic reactions. Something happens, they react. Someone says something, they react. They feel something, they react. Stimulus, response, stimulus, response. No gap, no choice, no freedom. But prososha creates that gap. It's the practice of pausing, of noticing, of catching yourself, of becoming aware of what you're thinking before the thought becomes an action. And in that awareness, that tiny moment of consciousness, you have power. You can choose. You can say, I'm having a thought that I'm not good enough. Interesting. That's just a thought. It's not truth. I don't have to believe it. I don't have to act from it. I practice this constantly. In conversations, I'd notice when my mind started formulating a response before the other person finished speaking. That awareness allowed me to stop, to actually listen, to be present. In moments of anger, I'd notice the sensation rising in my chest before it became words or actions. That awareness gave me a choice about how to respond. In moments of fear, I'd notice the thoughts spinning, the catastrophizing, the stories. And that awareness allowed me to question those stories rather than believe them automatically. The key insight here is that you are not your thoughts. You are the awareness that notices your thoughts. And that distinction changes everything. When you believe you are your thoughts, when you identify with every thought that passes through your mind, you're at their mercy. You believe them all. You react to them all. You're controlled by them. But when you understand that you are the space in which thoughts appear, when you can observe thoughts like clouds passing through the sky, you're free. You can let unhelpful thoughts pass. You can question limiting beliefs. You can choose which thoughts to engage with and which to release. Here's a practical example of how this works. Let's say someone criticizes you. Immediately, your mind generates thoughts. They're right. I'm not good enough. I always mess things up. Everyone thinks I'm incompetent. I should just quit. And if you're unconscious, if you're not practicing prososha, you believe those thoughts. You identify with them. They become your reality. And you spiral into shame and self-doubt. But if you're practicing vigilant attention, you notice those thoughts. You catch them, and you can examine them. Wait, are these thoughts true? Is it true that everyone thinks I'm incompetent? Is it true that I always mess things up? Is it true that one piece of criticism defines my worth? And when you examine them, you realize they're not true. They're just thoughts, automatic, conditioned thoughts, old patterns, and you don't have to believe them. You can let them go. Or here's another example. You're feeling anxious. Your chest is tight. Your heart is racing. Your mind is spinning with worry. And if you're unconscious, you become the anxiety. You say, I am anxious, and you believe that's who you are in that moment. You identify with it, and that makes it worse. Because now you're not just experiencing anxiety, you're resisting it, fighting it, trying to make it go away. But if you're practicing prososha, you notice something different. You notice, there's tightness in my chest. There's a racing heart. There are thoughts about the future. There's anxiety present. Do you see the difference? I am anxious versus there is anxiety present. One is identification. One is observation. One traps you. One frees you. When you observe anxiety instead of becoming it, you can be with it without being overwhelmed by it. You can let it be there without fighting it. And paradoxically, when you stop fighting it, it often passes more quickly. This practice, this constant self-observation, it sounds simple, but it's the hardest thing you'll ever do. Because the mind is so fast, the thoughts are so automatic, the identification is so habitual. You'll forget constantly. You'll get swept away constantly. You'll realize hours later that you've been completely unconscious, completely identified, completely on autopilot. And that's okay. That's not failure. That's just being human. The practice isn't perfection. The practice is return. Every time you notice you've been unconscious, you return to awareness. Every time you catch yourself identified with a thought, you step back into observation. Again and again and again. I set up reminders for myself throughout the day. Little triggers to wake me up. Maybe I'd pause every time I walked through a doorway and ask myself, what am I thinking right now? What am I feeling? Or every time I heard a bell or saw a bird, I'd take a breath and return to presence. You can do the same thing. Set random alarms on your phone throughout the day. When they go off, wherever you are, whatever you're doing, pause. Notice. What are you thinking? What are you feeling? Are you present or lost in thought? Are you here or somewhere else? And pay special attention to the distinction between sensation and story. Sensation is what's actually happening in your body right now. Story is the meaning you're making about it, the narrative you're spinning, the thoughts about the thoughts. When you're anxious, the sensation might be tight chest, shallow breath, activated nervous system. The story is, something terrible is going to happen. I can't handle this. I'm going to fail. Everyone will judge me. The sensation is real and present. The story is imagined and future-based. And when you can distinguish between them, when you can stay with sensation instead of spinning into story, you suffer so much less. Because here's the truth. Sensations are manageable. A tight chest, a racing heart, trembling hands, those are just sensations. Uncomfortable, yes, but not dangerous. Not unbearable. You can sit with sensations. You can breathe through them. You can let them be there without them meaning anything about you. But stories, narratives, thoughts, those are what create suffering. Those are what spiral you into panic or despair or rage. And the beautiful thing is, you can catch those stories. You can question them. You can choose not to believe them. So that's prososh. That's habit 9. Vigilant attention. Constant self-observation. The practice of noticing your mind, questioning your thoughts, distinguishing between sensation and story, creating the gap between stimulus and response where your freedom lives. It's not something you do once. It's something you practice constantly, forever. And the more you practice it, the more conscious you become, the more choice you have, the more freedom you experience. And now we come to the final habit, habit number 10. And this is the one that ties everything else together. This is the one that, when you really understand it, when you really live it, transforms everything. It's called memento mori. Remember death. Remember that you will die. Remember that this is all temporary. Remember that your time here is finite, precious, and brief. And let that remembrance inform how you live. I know this sounds dark. I know our culture is terrified of death, avoids talking about it, pretends it's not going to happen. But that avoidance is what's killing us, not physically, but spiritually. Because when you forget that you're going to die, when you live like you have unlimited time, you waste it, you postpone, you take things for granted. You save your best self for some future moment that may never come. You avoid risk. You play small. You wait for permission. You let fear hold you back. Because you think there's always more time. There's always tomorrow. There's always next year. But there isn't. Not guaranteed. You could die today, right now. This could be your last hour, your last minute, your last breath. I'm not saying that to scare you. I'm saying it because it's true. And the truth, when you face it squarely, is the most liberating force in the universe. Because when you truly accept your mortality, when you truly remember that this ends, you stop wasting time. You stop postponing meaning. You stop living like there's a dress rehearsal. This is it. This is the show. And you're on stage right now. I thought about death every single day. Not morbidly, not obsessively, but consciously, deliberately. I'd wake up and I'd say to myself, I might die today. This might be my last day. How will I live it? What matters? What doesn't? Who do I need to tell I love them? What do I need to say? What do I need to do? What do I need to let go of? And that remembrance, that daily confrontation with my own mortality, it clarified everything. It made my priorities obvious. It made the trivial obviously trivial. It made the important obviously important. You know what happens when you remember you're going to die? You stop caring so much what people think of you, because they're going to die too, and none of this will matter in 100 years. You stop holding grudges, because life's too short to carry resentment. You forgive more easily, you love more openly, you take more risks, you say the things you've been afraid to say, you do the things you've been postponing, you stop performing and start living, you stop trying to be perfect and start being real. And the thing is, everybody knows they're going to die, but knowing intellectually and remembering viscerally are completely different. Most people know they're mortal, but they don't live like they're mortal. They live like they're immortal, like they have infinite time. Like death is something that happens to other people, not them. And that unconsciousness, that forgetting, that's what creates a life of regret. Because you get to the end, and you realize you spent your whole life waiting to feel ready, waiting for the right moment, waiting for permission, waiting for certainty. And you never did the things that mattered. You never said what you needed to say. You never became who you were meant to become, because you forgot that time runs out. Memento mori prevents that. It's a daily wake-up call, a daily reminder that this is finite, that everyone you love will die, that you will die, that nothing is permanent. And that remembrance doesn't make life depressing. It makes life precious. It makes every moment sacred. It makes every interaction meaningful, because you're aware of its temporariness. You're aware that this might be the last time you see this person, the last time you have this conversation, the last time you watch the sunrise, and that awareness changes how you show up. I've watched people die, many people, and I've seen the regret. I've seen people realize too late that they wasted their lives, that they played it safe, that they never took the risk, that they never told the truth, that they never loved fully, that they let fear run the show. And the tragedy is, it didn't have to be that way. They had the same amount of time everyone has. They just didn't remember they were using it up. They forgot they were mortal, and by the time they remembered, it was too late. Don't let that be you. Don't wait until you're dying to realize you should have been living. Remember death now, today, this moment, not to make you sad, but to make you alive. Not to make you fearful, but to make you free. Because when you remember that this ends, you stop hesitating. You stop playing small. You stop living according to other people's expectations. You start living according to what actually matters. So here's the practice. Every single morning, look at yourself in the mirror and say out loud, I might die today. Feel it. Don't just say the words. Actually feel the truth of it. Feel the impermanence. Feel the preciousness. Feel the urgency. And then ask yourself, if this is my last day, how do I want to live it? What matters? What doesn't? What needs to be said? What needs to be done? What needs to be released? And then set a daily reminder on your phone. Just 2 words, memento mori. And when it goes off, wherever you are, whatever you're doing, pause, take a breath. Remember you're mortal. Remember this is temporary. Remember everyone you're with is mortal too. And let that remembrance soften you. Let it open your heart. Let it remind you what's actually important. Because here's what happens when you practice this consistently. Your patience increases, because you realize this argument doesn't matter. This traffic doesn't matter. This inconvenience doesn't matter. You're going to be dead one day, and none of this will have mattered. Your priorities clarify. You stop saying yes to things that don't align with your values just because you're afraid to say no. You stop wasting time on relationships that drain you. You stop postponing the things that matter. Your courage increases. You take the risks you've been avoiding. You have the conversations you've been postponing. You create the thing you've been dreaming about. Because what's the worst that can happen? Rejection, failure, embarrassment. You're going to die anyway. Might as well try. Your love deepens. You tell people you love them. You show up fully. You stop taking them for granted. You cherish their presence because you know it's temporary. Your gratitude expands. You stop complaining. You stop focusing on what's wrong. You notice what's beautiful, what's precious, what's miraculous about just being alive. And here's the deepest gift of memento mori. It makes you present because the past is gone. The future isn't promised. All you have is now. This breath, this moment, this experience. And when you remember that, when you really know it in your bones, you stop living in your head and start living in your life. You stop thinking about being here, and you actually are here, fully, completely. And that presence, that aliveness, that's what mentally untouchable actually means. It doesn't mean nothing can hurt you. It means you're so fully alive, so fully present, so fully accepting of reality as it is, that you're not wasting a single moment wishing things were different. You're not postponing your life. You're not performing your life. You're living it, right now, with death as your advisor, with mortality as your teacher, with impermanence as your liberation. So those are the 10 habits. Let me just quickly recap them for you because I know we covered a lot. The morning rehearsal, where you visualize potential difficulties and rehearse your response. The dichotomy of control, where you sort what's yours to control from what isn't and release the rest. Voluntary discomfort, where you choose small discomforts to build resilience for larger ones. Evening reflection, where you review your day with honest, gentle clarity. Negative visualization, where you imagine loss to cultivate gratitude for presence. The view from above, where you zoom out to right-size your problems and find perspective. Amor fati, where you learn to love what happens because it's the raw material of your growth. The obstacle is the way, where you see challenges as your curriculum rather than your curse. Prososh, where you practice vigilant attention and observe your mind without identifying with it. And memento mori, where you remember death to fully live. 10 practices, 10 facets of the same truth, 10 ways of learning to be fully human without being destroyed by your humanity. 10 paths to the same destination, freedom, not freedom from life. Freedom in life. Freedom to feel everything without being owned by anything. Freedom to be vulnerable without being fragile. Freedom to be present in a world that's constantly trying to pull you into past or future. Freedom to be yourself without apology or performance. Now, I know what you're probably thinking right now. You're probably thinking, this is overwhelming. 10 habits. How do I do all of this? Where do I even start? How do I remember? How do I stay consistent? And here's what I want to say to you, and this is important. You don't have to do all of this perfectly. You don't have to do it all at once. In fact, you won't. You'll forget. You'll skip days. You'll fall back into old patterns. You'll feel like a fraud. And all of that is not failure. All of that is being human. The practice isn't perfection. The practice is return. Every time you notice you've been unconscious, you return to awareness. Every time you catch yourself trying to control the uncontrollable, you return to release. Every time you realize you've been taking someone for granted, you return to gratitude. Every time you forget you're mortal, you remember, again and again and again. That's the whole game. Not never falling, but always getting back up. Not never forgetting, but always remembering again. So let me make this painfully simple for you. Let me give you a roadmap that's doable, that's manageable, that won't overwhelm you. Because the goal isn't to become a perfect Stoic overnight. The goal is to begin, to take one step, and then another, and another, until gradually, over time, these practices become part of who you are. Week 1. Just start with the morning practice. That's it. Nothing else. For the next 7 days, spend 3 minutes each morning sitting quietly and asking, what could go wrong today? And how will I respond with character? That's your only job. 3 minutes. One practice. That's manageable. That's doable. And what you'll find is this. Just this one practice will start changing how you move through your day. You'll be less reactive, more prepared, more centered. And that will motivate you to continue. Week 2. Add the evening reflection. Now you're bookending your day. 3 minutes in the morning rehearsing, 5 minutes in the evening reflecting, 8 minutes total. You can do that. And what these two practices together create is consciousness. You're becoming aware of your patterns. You're seeing yourself more clearly. You're learning from your days instead of just surviving them. And that awareness is the foundation of everything else. Week 3. Now you add one thing from the dichotomy of control. Once a day, when you're feeling stressed or anxious or frustrated, make the 2 columns. What's in my control? What's not in my control? And practice letting go of the second column just once a day, 1 moment of release. And watch what happens. Watch how much lighter you feel. Watch how much energy you reclaim when you stop trying to control what you can't. Week 4. Add one voluntary discomfort each day, just one. Something small. Maybe it's a cold shower. Maybe it's skipping dessert. Maybe it's taking the long way. Maybe it's sitting in silence when you want to scroll. One small thing that's uncomfortable but not harmful. One thing that proves to yourself that you're capable. And do that every day for a week. And notice how your confidence grows. Notice how your sense of fragility decreases. And then keep going. Keep adding. Keep practicing. Not all at once, but gradually, over time. Let it be gentle. Let it be sustainable. Let it be imperfect. Because this isn't about becoming some kind of enlightened master. This is about becoming a little more conscious, a little more free, a little more present every single day. And those incremental changes, over time, they compound into transformation. You don't have to do all of this perfectly. You just have to do it. You don't have to never make mistakes. You just have to learn from them. You don't have to be perfect. You just have to be committed to the practice of becoming. And that practice, that commitment, that's what makes you mentally untouchable. Not because nothing can hurt you, but because nothing can stop you from returning to center, from choosing again, from showing up again, from trying again. And here's something else I want you to understand, something that might give you permission to be more gentle with yourself. I practiced these 10 habits for decades, and I still failed regularly. I still got angry when I didn't want to. I still worried about things outside my control. I still took people for granted. I still forgot I was mortal. I still fell into old patterns. The difference wasn't that I became perfect. The difference was that I noticed faster. I returned faster. I forgave myself faster. And I kept practicing anyway, because that's the secret. It's not about arriving at some destination where you've mastered it all and you never struggle again. There is no destination. There's only practice. Only the ongoing process of waking up, falling asleep, waking up again, of forgetting, remembering, forgetting, remembering, of being unconscious, becoming conscious, drifting back into unconsciousness, returning to consciousness. That's the path. That's the whole thing. And it never ends. And that's okay. In fact, that's perfect, because it means you never have to be done. You never have to have it all figured out. You just have to keep showing up. So here's what I need you to hear as we start to close. And this might be the most important thing I say in this entire video. You're not broken. You've just been untrained. You've just been given the wrong instructions. You've been told your whole life that strength means not feeling, that resilience means not needing, that success means not failing. And none of that is true. None of it. Real strength is feeling everything and not being destroyed by it. Real resilience is needing connection and still being okay in solitude. Real success is failing repeatedly and still showing up. You're not too sensitive. You're not too emotional. You're not weak. You're human. And being human means feeling deeply, struggling often, and choosing anyway. That's not a flaw. That's the whole point. And what these 10 practices do, what this Stoic approach offers, is not a way to stop being human. It's a way to be human with more grace, with more awareness, with more freedom. It's not about eliminating pain. It's about not adding unnecessary suffering on top of inevitable pain. It's not about controlling life. It's about accepting life while still choosing your response to it. It's not about transcending your emotions. It's about having a healthy relationship with them. You've got this, not because it's easy, but because you've already survived 100% of your worst days. You're undefeated. You've made it through everything life has thrown at you so far. And every tool I've shared today is just language for what you already know deep down. You're far more capable than your fear tells you. You're far more resilient than your doubt suggests. You're far more whole than your wounds would have you believe. And the path forward isn't about becoming someone new. It's about uncovering who you've always been underneath. All the conditioning, all the fear, all the performance, all the noise. Underneath all of that, there's a you that's already wise, already strong, already free, already at peace. And these practices are just tools to help you remember that, to help you access that, to help you live from that place more and more often. So here's what I want you to do right now, in this moment. I want you to take a breath, a deep one, in through your nose, out through your mouth. And as you breathe out, I want you to release something. Release the belief that you need to be perfect. Release the belief that you need to have it all figured out. Release the belief that you're behind or broken or not enough. Just let it go, just for now. And in the space that opens up, I want you to say something to yourself. Say it in your mind or whisper it out loud. I'm not broken, I've just been misled. I'm not weak, I've just been untrained. I'm not failing, I'm learning. And I'm exactly where I need to be to begin. Because that's the truth. You are exactly where you need to be, right here, right now. With all your imperfections and struggles and questions and doubts, you don't need to be anywhere else or anyone else to start this journey. You just need to be willing to look at yourself honestly, willing to question your patterns, willing to practice something different, willing to return when you forget, willing to keep going even when it's hard. And you are willing. I know you are, because you're still here, you're still listening, you're still open, and that's all it takes. The Stoic path isn't about leaving your humanity behind. It's about bringing all of it, the fear, the hope, the grief, the joy, the doubt, the courage, all of it into relationship with wisdom, into relationship with awareness, into relationship with acceptance. And when you do that, when you stop fighting yourself and start working with yourself, when you stop demanding perfection and start practicing presence, everything changes. Not overnight, not dramatically, but gradually, steadily, inevitably. You change, you grow, you transform. And one day, maybe months from now, maybe years from now, you'll look back and barely recognize the person you were when you started. And you'll realize something beautiful. You didn't become someone new. You just became more yourself, more real, more whole, more free. And that's my wish for you. Not that you become some kind of Stoic philosopher who never struggles, but that you become fully, unapologetically, courageously yourself. That you live with presence instead of performance. That you love without holding back. That you risk without needing guarantees. That you feel everything without being destroyed by anything. That you embrace your mortality so fully that you're truly alive. That you're mentally untouchable, not because nothing can hurt you, but because nothing can stop you from returning to who you really are. Now, if this conversation landed for you, if something here shifted or clarified or comforted something in you, I'd love to hear from you in the comments. Tell me which habit resonated most. Tell me which story hit you hardest. Tell me where you're struggling and where you're growing. Tell me what you're going to practice first. I read the comments, I learn from them. And there's a whole community of people down there who are on this same journey, who are asking the same questions, who are struggling with the same things. You're not alone in this. And sometimes just knowing that, just seeing that other people are also trying to figure out how to be human with more grace, that's enough to keep going. And if this is the kind of content you want more of, if you want more real philosophy instead of just productivity hacks, more depth instead of just surface-level advice, more truth instead of just motivation, then subscribe. Hit that subscribe button. Not because I need the numbers, I'm dead. Remember, I don't care about the numbers, but because it signals to you that you're committed to this, that you're serious about waking up, that you're investing in your own consciousness, and that matters. And hit the like button too, because it helps other people find this. It helps other seekers, other strugglers, other humans who are looking for something real, discover this conversation. And maybe, just maybe, it'll reach someone who needs it exactly when they need it. And that's worth something. That matters. All right. I think we're done here. I've said what I came to say. I've shared what I learned through decades of practice, through failure and success, through war and peace, through loss and love, through being emperor and being human. And now it's yours. Now it's your turn. Not to repeat what I did, but to find your own way. Not to follow my path, but to forge yours. Not to become me, but to become you, more fully, more freely, more courageously than ever before. So go live, not perfectly, but presently, not fearlessly, but courageously, not waiting to be ready, but taking the next step anyway, not avoiding discomfort, but meeting it with steadiness, not trying to control the uncontrollable, but releasing what's not yours to carry, not forgetting you're mortal, but remembering every day so that every day matters, not performing strength, but practicing presence, not becoming untouchable, but becoming unshakable in your commitment to showing up fully alive. The Stoic path isn't about leaving your humanity behind. It's about bringing all of it, everything you are, into relationship with wisdom. And that's the most worthwhile work there is. That's the work, and you're ready for it. Not because you feel ready, but because you're here, you're willing, and that's enough. Thank you for being here. Thank you for listening. Thank you for caring enough about your own life to spend this time with me, learning, questioning, considering a different way. That matters. You matter. And whatever you're going through right now, whatever you're struggling with, whatever you're afraid of, you can handle it. Not because it's easy, but because you've handled everything so far. And you will handle what comes next. One breath, one moment, one choice at a time. Now go. The world is waiting for the fullest, most authentic, most alive version of you. Not the perfect version, not the fearless version, but the real version. The version that feels deeply and chooses wisely. The version that struggles and keeps going anyway. The version that's human and okay with being human. That version. Be that. Live that. And watch what happens. I'll leave you with this final thought. Something to carry with you. You're going to die. One day, maybe today, maybe decades from now, this will end. And the only question that will matter is, Did you live? Did you really live? Did you love fully? Did you risk boldly? Did you show up honestly? Did you waste your time worrying about what people thought? Or did you spend it becoming who you were meant to be? The clock is ticking. It's always been ticking. And every moment you waste waiting to feel ready is a moment you'll never get back. So don't wait. Start now, right now, with the next breath, with the next choice, with the next small step toward becoming who you really are. That's all you need to do, and that's everything.